Hello guys, it's your counsellor Tony again. I'm doing another episode. This will be the third one on bereavement and loss, and I hope you're all keeping in good health and enjoying the summer, whatever you're doing. I want to really today look at what it means to lose things as well as people, any kind of loss in our life that is such a big deal, and often people don't recognise the importance of working through the loss and the amount of grief that it causes them. And it might be that you've just taken an exam at university or college and you failed it, and it's a big loss to you. It's a big deal because you put hours and hours of work in and you're wondering what to do next. And the important thing is that you don't see that as a waste of time, that it can be used for the future for something else. You need to be able to recognize that it's not failure, but it's learning. And with any form of loss, like losing other people, it's important to have a time of reflection, a time of thinking through what happened, how you're feeling, and facing up to how you're feeling. And different kinds of losses in our life can bring up different feelings for many of us. It might be guilt, pain, disappointment, rejection, fear. All those things are quite natural, and they don't follow in the same order in processes of loss and grief. So it's important for us not only to recognise this, but also perhaps to share how we're feeling with someone else. Tell someone our story. Tell somebody about what we've experienced and not keep it to ourselves. Because if we don't, then we can go through this whole process of being quite depressed, low mood, and our self-confidence can take a real knocking, and we start to question, what's the point of life? What meaning is there to whatever I do? It doesn't seem to turn out right. And those are natural thoughts and feelings, but they need to be shared. So this process of grieving and loss is a time when it makes us question perhaps even our identity, who we are, what our lives are about, maybe take on a new direction in our lives. But at the time, we may see it as a time when everything falls to pieces, and what's the point? I'll never recover from this. But all these feelings and all these emotions are quite important to express, and they're natural. Everybody goes through them. I also want to talk about complex grief, or complexness in terms of loss. It might be a relationship that you've had with someone who's been very close to you in life and who's died, and you're kind of really feeling angry because there were things that you wanted to say and things that you wanted to do with them that you weren't able to do when they were alive, and you feel that you've just lost the opportunity. So it's important for you to realise that maybe expressing those feelings and those thoughts on paper might help. Writing a short letter to the person who's died, and then maybe if they were buried somewhere, you could take it to the grave, read the letter to them, expressing how you feel and what you wanted to say when they were alive but you weren't able to say it. Maybe things that you wanted to cover that you weren't able to work through with them. Maybe you want their forgiveness, and it's important, isn't it, to be able to do that in a quiet, safe place. If the person's not being buried, then maybe where the ashes were scattered at the crematorium. But to be able to kind of express your grief, your feelings, in a positive way with that person is very important, because it'll help you to move on emotionally with your life, and also to be able to feel a tremendous relief from carrying all those difficult feelings that you're experiencing at the time. Some of us are probably facing up or having to face up to a number of losses, which makes it really harder, and we don't know where to turn. We don't know what to do next. So what I would say is perhaps looking at these losses and saying, what is the priority? What is the most important one? And dealing with that first, because it might be through dealing with that particular loss, some of the others start to make sense. And some of our loss might be to do with some of the trauma that we've had in our life, some of the difficult situations and circumstances we've been through that have created problems with this loss that we're experiencing. So being able to work through some of that trauma, perhaps with a counsellor. And I know that counsellors sometimes are people that you can't afford to go and see because of the cost of living crisis, but there are counselling agencies and there are people who are prepared to give you their time and to listen to you. That's not going to cost money. And it's important, isn't it, to be able to share our story with people and not keep it in ourselves. And that will help to build trust again, because relationships are so important. And if we've lost a very important person in our life and we start to feel we can't, how can we trust anybody again, because that person really understood us and we really trusted them, we need to start to build that trust again through time. And it's not easy. So building that trust again, perhaps through a professional person, like a counsellor, like somebody from the well-being, emotional well-being group in your community, is important, because they will help you to see the importance of trust and how relationships are very important to us, that we can't live on our own. We are made for relationships. So, facing up to loss then and the grieving process is very important in terms of all these things that I've mentioned, but also having that safe place where you can perhaps be with yourself for a period and think about what's gone on for you, what you've experienced, without having pressure from other people to do things, to carry on life as normal, as if nothing's happened, because it is a big deal for you. And it's about having people around you who understand you, who know what you're going through. And talking about some of the big losses in our lives, some of us who have had a job and we've been made redundant, for instance, some of you guys who are 18, 25, that sort of age, to realise that you've not been made redundant, but the job's been made redundant. And that's important, because if you see it like that, you will realise that you have value as a human being still, and that you can go on and do something else with your life, even though at the time it doesn't look like you're able to do that. So all the skills, knowledge and experience that you have are very important to hold on to during a time of loss, because they continue to give you a meaning and a reason for living. So what we're looking at really is the injustice of loss as well in our lives. And a lot of us, through the whole experience and time that we had COVID, the pandemic, experienced an awful loss. Perhaps we lost people that were close to us. We lost time at school. However, were we going to make it up? We lost opportunities to get jobs, to go to work. And that's made us feel, how can I live and cope with all this injustice? How can I come to terms with this injustice? Because the umbrella going over all this loss is the injustice that it creates. But we must move on. We cannot continue to just stay with this injustice. We have to come to terms with the fact that life is for living. We have to move on. We need help from other people. Don't let your pride stop you from asking for help. And we need to realise that the people or the things that we've lost would like us to move on with our life and do something positive again as the result of what's happened. Because people who we've lost, who are close to us, they would really like to think after they've died that we've done something positive after their death with our life, that we've been able to achieve something, and maybe doing it for them as well, and being able to say in the future, I did this for this person who was so important to me, who is no longer around. And that gives you a tremendous feeling of satisfaction that you've achieved something, and it's a platform to go on positively with your life. So I'd like to leave you with just 3 things to hold on to during these difficult times of loss and grieving. Purpose and meaning in life is so important to hold on to and to move forward with. Looking after our health, because some people who we lose may not have looked after themselves properly. So what we eat, having the right amount of sleep, having the right amount of exercise is so important, that we look after our health, and also that we realise that relationships are important. really being able to trust people again and to have positive relationships again after this difficult time in our life is really quite a big deal. And attracting the right kind of people into our lives is something that we need to really be aware of. People who are going to support us, believing us, praise us for what we've been able to do and achieve. And that will help our self-esteem and self-confidence to grow again. So I hope this podcast has been helpful in some way to some of you who may be struggling at this time with some sort of loss or sadness or grieving over something that you've experienced. And I look forward to sharing another podcast with you next month. Have a good summer. Take care of yourself. Bye for now.